Yes. All right, colleagues. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Warm welcome. I see that the numbers are growing. Happy to have you with us. Let us wait a couple of more seconds until everyone is able to join us. I see that it's more than 100 colleagues already, so it is really a great pleasure to have you all here for another great session in this masterclass series designed to really inspire, empower, and guide UN volunteers and online volunteers like you in navigating the unique opportunities and challenges of building a career within the UN system. And each month we come together to hear directly from leaders, experts, and professionals who bring a wealth of experience from across the UN and beyond. And these conversations are designed not only to offer you practical advice and guidance, but also to ignite ideas, inspire action, and create meaningful connections as we all strive to lead forward, as the title of the session and series says, in our professional journeys. And today is a special day, so you're all very lucky because we have a great agenda for today, great guest speakers. And to introduce our esteemed guest speaker, let me give the floor to our very own Mirka Babrechanova, who is the Chief of Human Resources Section at UN Volunteers. So Mirka, please introduce the guest speaker of today. Thank you.
Okay, Daniel, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining. I see that there are now 129 participants. The numbers are increasing. So the session will be moderated. This is, as Daniel said, the series of shifts. We have various guest speakers, mainly HR professionals from different UN entities. So I'd like to introduce you AItor Maguna, who is... we started, I don't know, AItor in UNFPA like 12 years ago, 14 years ago, when we were young and crispy. We were new hires. We were both enthusiastic. I was business partner. AItor was in charge of learning and performance management. And I'm really grateful to AItor, who is currently Chief of HR Management Services in UN office in Nairobi. I'll ask AItor to maybe sort of correct me if I'm wrong, but AItor has this unique mix of experience in the UN and international development sector, because we brought him up from EU institution to UNFPA that was HQ based, then he moved to World Food Program. It was in Rome, then partially AItor was also in Latin America as business partner. Now he is in Nairobi. So AItor is an example of a person who has experience of HQ and field. He's very strategic, excellent human being. He's real agile professional because in my experience, AItor will not give you the ruling, like staff rule, but first he will ask you how you are doing. He's very empathetic, and I believe his heart is in human resources and he's in the right place. So I'll give the floor to AItor. AItor, we're very happy, and I'm really privileged you are here with us. Thank you, AItor.
Thank you very much, Mirka. It's a real pleasure. Thank you also, Daniel, for all the efforts to get this going. And of course, for all the participants who are attending to this session. Yes, my name is AItor Maguna, Chief HR at UNON, which is the United Nations office in Nairobi. And we cover, from the HR perspective, quite a broad area of it's a very, very large team, because we provide services in the HR across the world. So in terms of the discussion of today, I know you have had a lot of presentations in terms of career development as part of this series, or at least a few of them. And I wanted to focus a bit on something that is impacting all of us, how the changing environment is affecting our careers, and how, as a young or relatively young professional, you can build on that to have a successful career. So let me go into, I have prepared a presentation for that. Let me go into my deck. Okay, please confirm if you can see it.
Yes.
Yes, you can see it. So, colleagues, I'm not sure how many of you have a botanic interest. This is a very famous butterfly that flies for thousands of kilometers in South America. And in a way, it's also the way we evolve along our careers and professional lives. So let me start with a bit of context. So I'm not sure if some of you, I mean, I'm sure many of you are checking these things, but I'm not sure if some of you are familiar with this website. This is a website that allows us to check in a way, or to measure. It's always, there is a proxy, so it's never perfect. But in a way, the IQ test results of the different AI tools. So basically, this is updated every week, and it tests the different AI systems, the ones that are most known out there, in terms of some of the questions and problems that you face when you are doing the IQ assessment. And as you can see, some of them are a bit on the end, so relatively low IQ, or they have still some issues solving logical problems and questions that will pose as part of the reasoning challenges which we will place to someone who is doing this test. But you can see that some of them are really coming very, very high. Specifically, OpenAI or O1, the preview, is doing extremely well. And if we look at this, 120 IQ is almost something that is around the percentile around 80, 85. So it means that in some of these reasoning and kind of logic tasks, they can perform better than 85% of the population. So this is just to show how fast the environment where we are working is evolving because of the impact of AI. And this is impacting all of us, and it's impacting careers. Let's go to another important set of information. So the World Economic Forum reviews every year which ones are, or every 2 years, which ones are the top skills that they are coming up or they are required for professionals or in the professional work. And you can really see that we have some skills that when we are looking at them, you see analytical thinking, creative thinking, resilience, flexibility, agility, motivation and self-awareness, curiosity and lifelong learning, and of course, technological literacy. So these ones were the ones for 2023. What I want to show here is that beyond our domain of expertise and our functional area of expertise, we need all of us to focus on what are those core capabilities that allow us or will allow us to be most impactful in the work we do, and to achieve results, and to work best with others. And here, just this is a bit as food for thought for all of us to think about it and to make sure, because one of the biggest risks we see, and it happens to me quite often, we are involved. I have a team of recruiters and in my team, and we are around, on recruitment alone, it's a team of 32 colleagues. So imagine the number of recruitments that we are doing on constant basis. I mean, we are filling more than 200 positions per month. So what we see sometimes is that we find candidates extremely strong in technical area, but when we are coming to assessing other or more global cross-cutting competencies, we have gaps there. So that's a bit also for you to start thinking about, okay, what are the competencies that are most in demand? How can I prepare to develop them and to show them? Let's go to the next one. This is something that is coming quite new. This is a bit of research that we've been consulting also with some of the company working a lot on leadership and particularly on the impact of new skills in the sector or in employment. And here we see that there is one factor that was coming as top in the analysis they have done, and that's adaptability. We are living in an environment, many of you have heard the quote that wherever you are studying on the first three years of university, by the time you reach the fourth year, 60–70% of it will be obsolete. It will be overcome by the developments, new technology and new research in this area. So we need, particularly in the current context, we need all of us to be extreme agile and able to unlearn and learn. And one of the challenges we have as HR officers or HR experts is how can we assess on you or anyone who is a candidate that adaptability? How can we make sure that the person we are hiring is not only fit for the job of today, but also the jobs of tomorrow and the skills that will be required in the next years? So if I was, that's something for me extremely important, but if I were now looking for jobs, I will be very much also researching how can I develop and how can I show that adaptability. And many of you are doing that constantly. Many of you are living and working in contexts that they don't have anything to do with the previous experiences you have in rapidly changing environments. So it's extremely important to nurture this adaptability. And there is a whole model behind, but I will show you a bit behind maybe later, but just for you to know a bit what are a bit those dimensions. There is also coping with uncertainty. We are living in highly uncertain worlds. If you check or if you compare with 50, 60 years ago, the level of information change the pace is multiplying. Also, the importance of synthesizing information. We are exposed to many information. To do any task, we have to take information from different sources, but that's we need to be able to analyze, understand, and be able to process that information very, very fast. Achievement orientation, having that motivation to achieve results. And then a very, very important element that is growing in terms of importance, and is everything related to inclusiveness. How can we work with others to make sure that they feel part of the work we are doing, that they want to contribute, that they feel comfortable to raise opinions that they don't agree with ours? So how we build those kind of context. And then, of course, energy, passion, and optimism, and then insights and other elements. But I wanted just to show you a bit this because it's very new and it's very important for all of us in terms of career development. So how is the UN, and this is mostly important for the Secretariat, but it affects ultimately the entire UN system because cascades down. And this is the vision that the Secretary General has been putting forward in terms of adapting the organization to the changing environment. So here we are talking about the paradigm for the UN United System, which is rejuvenated by a forward-thinking culture and empowered by cutting-edge skills for the 21st century. So we leverage on our diversity. We strive towards this vision with a powerful fusion of data, innovation, digital foresight, and behavioral science. And that's a bit what I want you to remember. when we are talking about culture or organizational culture, we talk about the strategy resources, we talk about how we behave among us, and also how the people we have and how we learn, how we develop, and then all the other area about collaborating and external partners. So those are a bit the principal pillars. But here we see a bit what have been prioritized as the quintets of change. And here we have the first one is related to behavioral science. How do we base ourselves on science-based models for us and also for the people we serve to make better choices? We'll build a bit on that. The second one is data. We have data is now overall, and it's a key asset for any work we do. So how can we build impactful data ecosystems? It's not anymore the data we have, but how that data interacts and relates to the data elsewhere. Digital, we can, of course, this is a critical one, but it doesn't need too much explanation. Then there is a bit also an element of strategic foresight. And here's a bit what we were discussing or in a way announcing before. And this is how in such a rapid changing environment, how can we navigate uncertainty, and how can we identify the key elements to have impact, and depending on the particular context. And then a big focus on innovation. How can we, it's not only to develop innovation, but also the scaling up of innovations and the adoption of innovation. And there is a much more here detail why we are choosing those or having chosen the 5 priorities by the SG. So we see a bit applications of data and how, for example, when we are talking about the 900 million people who suffer from severe food insecurity, how technology and access to data in terms of satellite imagery, data and weather, soil conditions, and so on, help subsistence farmers to plan and to organize a bit what will come first and what they should prioritize. A second element that we have discussed, of course, is innovation. And here is, for example, all the innovation that is happening in the area of healthcare for the 2 billion people in rural and remote areas that they've been having a lot of difficulties, and they have a lot of difficulties accessing health. A strategic foresight, and here is a bit, for example, when we are talking or discussing about coastal communities, how member states can model climate scenarios and anticipate areas prone to flooding and extreme weather events, which are happening now everywhere, and how we use all those modeling and to proactive take measures and address. And then finally, we have 2 more, digital capacity, so that we for example, in the area of education is critical. And then what we were discussing about behavioral science for example, on social protection uptake. So how can we work with the information we know about behavior and the science of behavior to ensure the people we work with and the people we serve uptake in terms of health insurance, or they have behaviors that they will benefit them long term. So as you can see, that those are a bit the 5 priorities that have been defined by the SG and the working group in this area for the UN 2.0. And why this is important for all of us? So if we want to have a long-term career in this context, in a way, we also have to be thinking, how can I make use of those skills and those approaches in the work that I'm doing right now. And also, whenever I have interviews or I apply to positions and I try to have new roles and responsibilities, how can I show that I'm using these skills in order to have the maximum possible impact? Here we see, but we're not going to go into that. I will leave this a bit. And then we're coming a bit more to some a bit more practical components, and this is how all this impacts me as a potential candidate to the UN and as a professional. So here, a big question that we've been discussing for a long time in HR, and people, sometimes we make career choices without being too conscious about some of the decisions we take. For many years, there has been a very clear separation between generalists and specialists. And generalists are colleagues who are very good in terms of the big picture, has knowledge to a broad range of issues and topics, very often take managerial coordination roles. They are very flexible, and they know how to work in many different contexts and situations. On the other hand, we have what we have traditionally been calling specialists, and they have a very deep knowledge and experience in one particular subject and area of expertise. They tend to aspire to become thought leaders in the area of expertise, and the problem with this sometimes becomes career inflexibility, and most importantly, from my perspective and my experience, is when you become a specialist in an area that is becoming obsolete. So as a specialist, you really need to make sure that you are on top of the developments in the area where you are working, and that you are working in an area that is becoming relevant and critical. So another important thought here is, until, let's say, 15 years ago, there was not such a strong preference. There were a lot of roles that they were generalist roles, and there were a lot of roles that they were specialist roles. So it was some people will go in one direction, depending a bit on their personal preferences. The job market is shifting and is moving at a very, very high pace. We are currently in a job market where specialists are very much in demand. Specialists are, and there is a very famous article on Harvard Business Review in 2000. It was in 2011 on the rise of the specialist, and it became a bit an article that has been referenced many times. But what we are seeing now, and it was in a way anticipating what we are seeing now. Now, for anyone to have a long, successful career, particularly when someone is, I would say, until mid-level management, is to be a specialist. Technology is requiring us to be extremely good at what we are, to find where we can have the highest impact, and that requires a high level of specialization. What we are seeing is that once many colleagues reach that mid-level career, then there is often, and not all the time, in the past it was almost all the time, specialists were required to become generalists and people managers, because it was very difficult to have a specialist career at the most senior level. What we are seeing now is that still many specialists are given opportunities to manage, to lead teams, and that requires to become a bit more of a generalist, more broad. But still, my personal view, and this is very personal, but that's the way I see the job market evolving, is the weight and the importance of a specialist is critical. So we all have to think, what do I bring to this job or to this career opportunity that makes me special, that makes my skills and my approach particular and gives me an edge over other candidates. So that's something that each of us, we have to think very carefully. Maybe once we are a bit more advanced in the careers, as I said, the generalist part is start and take over. But please, if you are in a relatively early career process, the best entry point nowadays to not only the UN, but also in the private sector, public sector, is through specialist skills that makes you the best or excellent in the work you do. I also took, just to help a bit in the discussion, a model that often is being used for headhunting, because I know that we are discussing in the context of the UN, and I have provided until now, we have discussed quite a lot of the UN context, but I wanted also to expand the conversation in terms of career and look at what headhunting companies are looking into the candidates or the successful candidates that they propose and that they are often recommended or they are becoming successful, and those are the skills and the set of qualities that they've been refining over years of experience. So a couple of let's start with a very strong base, and that's a skill and experience. Having skills, having what we have discussed, those functional expertise, being very good at what one is doing in your professional area, in a way is a must. And then experience. And experience is always the very difficult part to acquire. It's how, particularly for colleagues who are or candidates who are in the early careers, that's the difficult part. I may have some skills, but how can I broaden that experience? How can I be exposed to different contexts? How can I work in different teams, sectors, or organizations? And that's a bit the base. They always work a lot with psychometric, but this is in a way linked to what we are discussing as personality and behavioral traits. What are a bit the elements of personality that they are particularly suitable for a position or a particular post? Please, on this area, something that we always get the question is, okay, so what are the personality traits or behavioral traits that a successful candidate needs? If I tell you the truth, there is not such a thing. Each position is totally different. If we are looking for a person who is a partnerships officer or expert in partnerships, or if we are looking for someone who is into innovation, or if we are looking into someone who is a highly specialized procurement officer, maybe those behavioral traits can be very different. If we are looking for someone who is the ambassador of the organization, if we are looking into someone who is an auditor. So the behavioral traits will be very specific to the position that we are looking at. Okay, so when you are thinking about career, when you are looking into a position you are interested, try to identify and with the recruiter or the hiring manager and say, okay, what are they looking for? So you really understand better what are also how those traits or personality requirements and behavioral traits particularly, they align with the experience and the approach you have. There is an element which is absolutely critical in terms of cultural fit and values. This is becoming more and more important, particularly on the values. We are, all of us, we have been exposed to environments, to colleagues who may achieve results, but at a very high cost. burning the teams or not fostering collaboration. So this is something that now, when we are looking at midterm, long-term success for our recruits, that's something we pay a lot of attention to. There is, of course, the area which is absolutely critical, emotional intelligence. And this is also how we are able to nearly 95% of the jobs require a very intense interaction or collaboration with others. And this is the part that is assessing how we are able to understand others, work with others, have that understanding that allow us also to get ourselves in their shoes, for us to be able to try, if we want to need them to, for them to collaborate in something or convince them about something. So how to work together and establish long-term trust-based relationships. And of course, and then the final one, and this is particularly for headhunting, not necessarily for all positions that we hire, but headhunters look at it very much, is that leadership potential. And here, in terms of leadership, there are many models. So you may want to look into, online. That on itself is a full can be a full presentation and discussion, but this is also very critical. What are those behaviors and personality traits that tend to correlate with long-term leadership potential? How are the colleagues who are able to establish that trust with others, that they are able also to show initiative, that they are able to stand by the team when things go wrong, who take full responsibility? So there are a few elements, but I think it's very important that you look into it. And of course, when we are talking about leadership potential, we all also tend to talk about situational leadership, because the requirements of that leadership in each organization are very different. So if you go to a sales company or a company that is very commercial, the kind of leadership model they have is going to be very different from the leadership model at the UN. So that's also something that you need to take into consideration when you are applying and you are considering career opportunities. And then I want to close a bit with one final element, and this is the capacity to learn. We have discussed, as we were discussing, and as you all know, the context, the environment where we are all operating is very changeable. So we need, or changes is shifting, is at a speed that is very difficult to master and even to anticipate. And what we are seeing is also an acceleration of that level of change. So we all need to be expert learners. And there is a fantastic actually course, a MOOC, one of these massive open online courses, which comes from the Deep Teaching Solutions and is learning how to learn. It's one of the most popular MOOCs or courses ever. It has up to 3,616,000. That's the last time I checked it. So that's probably, I think I took this figure a year ago. So by now it must be close to over 4 million people. But this is that have completed the course. It's extremely popular. The most popular course ever, I think this is last time I checked, that was at least 6 months ago, is the one on machine learning by Stanford. Remember, these are MOOCs. These are courses that they are open to everyone. And this is shifting the way we also understand education and skills development. We all have now access to courses online, you all know it, that they are provided by some of the most talented people in that field. So that's something that in the past you will have to travel and go to that specific university to see that professor. And now suddenly you can access the teachings of these professors online through these MOOCs. I know you know them, but I wanted to show some of the most popular ones. Oh, sorry. And here, of course, we have Coursera. Oh, sorry, my mistake. Coursera, EDX, Udacity for everything related to programming and so on. We have Disaster Ready, very, very good also for anyone who is interested in humanitarian work. We have, of course, LinkedIn Learning, and then we have GetAbstract. GetAbstract used to be super popular. Now it's becoming a bit less, and this is providing us abstracts of any book or that you are interested. You find most of them, you find them in GetAbstract. But this is also even now becoming a bit obsolete because through AI, you can ask any of these tools to summarize any document for you and provide you the key points, so you don't need to get any more to GetAbstract. But this is also showing how the environment that we are working on is shifting. And maybe just a final quote. I know that we are coming to the end of our time, that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn and relearn. So with this, I'm very happy to open a bit the floor for questions, comments, reactions, and yes, and I really want to wish you all the best in your careers, and I hope it was helpful, and it made you think about some elements that maybe you already know, but you look at them from a different perspective or with a bit more attention. So let me stop here. Let me take a pause, and then over to you, Mirka and Daniel.
Thank you so much, Aitor, and let us give you a warm round of applause. Colleagues, you can also do so using the reaction functionalities as you are doing it now. What a fantastic overview. And indeed, we have now time for questions and comments. You can use the Q&A tab that you see on the menu bar, as well as you can also use the chat to pose any questions to Aitor. And we are monitoring the Q&A tab as well. So there is a lot of thank you notes coming in and good wishes. But earlier there was already a question posed. So let's start with that while the colleagues are thinking. You have mentioned adaptability as one of the key elements of employability. And from an HR perspective, what do you think, how can professionals demonstrate adaptability in their applications or during interviews or performance reviews to really stand out in this competitive and ever-changing market? Do you have any specific tips for that?
I was thinking that this question may come. I didn't want to go into a lot of theory before, but let me show you one additional element. So this is one of the latest models we are seeing in terms of adaptability. It's very, very new. So I think it has been developed last year. And here, this is one of the models, but I think this is really, now in terms of adaptability, this is the one that best known. So here we see some of the dimensions that they are behind adaptability. So we are seeing a bit, there are three elements or three areas: ability, character, and environment. So we see a bit here what are the factors that, and this is a bit through factorial analysis that have been extracted, that correlate or underpin what is adaptability. No? So we're talking about grit, mental flexibility, mindset, resilience, and the capacity to unlearn. Then when we are talking about character, we are talking about emotional range. So emotional range is the range of emotions that we can relate to or that we can express. There are some of us that can be maybe a bit narrow, and some others can be very, very broad. The broader, the better in terms of adaptability. Extraversion also tends to correlate with adaptability, and there is a lot of discussion on the extraversion, introversion dimensions, but the latest research, at least on adaptability, showing some positive correlation, hope, motivational style, thinking style, and then some elements that we see a bit on the work environment, company support, emotional health, team support, work environment, and work stress. So if we want to demonstrate adaptability on any job application, we won't ask you specifically about adaptability. You know, at least in most of the UN, we'll do interviews based on competencies, but we want to see when you are answering and you are providing an example or you are talking about a project or something that you have work on, led, we want to see how you have taken into account the requirements. It's not that you come just with one idea in your mind and you say, okay, I roll it out, I impose it on everyone. It's more, okay, I understood what was the need on the other side. Based on that need and that feedback, I develop or I help or I contributed to develop a solution. Through the process, I was getting feedback all along, and that helped me to adjust and change my approach. And then at the end, what did I learn out of it? What would I have done in retrospect differently? So those are some tips to show adaptability. And of course, there is also another element, which I will always, right now, if you are going for an interview, no matter what they tell you, show how you are applying or that you know technology. I'm sure you all have read or have heard, there has been a famous quote recently, and they were asking, and it was, I think, and they were asking, I'm not remembering now who exactly said it, but it was recently a bit in the news. They were asking, do you think AI will get or take away my job? Well, AI won't take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI will take it. So please make sure, no matter where you are, and you are, most of you young, you are relatively early in the careers, that you become experts, because that will definitely give you an edge. We do a lot of interviews, and we are looking now, as I was saying, if we are looking to have impact, we are looking at automating, we are looking at benefiting from technology. You have an edge on that one, and you have to demonstrate it. So I think that will be my answer. Sorry, it was a bit long, but I think it's an important topic, and I'm quite passionate about it. So over to you, Daniel.
Very valuable insight. Thank you so much, AItor. We are receiving quite a lot of questions, so I tried to group them a bit. There are quite a few on leading and leadership. Do you have any advice from your experience as a leader now to give to UN volunteers looking to develop their leadership potential and prepare for those leadership roles within the UN or even beyond? Are there any specific experiences or programs or skills that you specifically can suggest that may have impacted your view on leadership or helped you develop those leadership skill set?
It's a really broad topic. We could be speaking about it for an hour or hours actually, but maybe two elements from my side. Leadership doesn't come with the position. We all exercise leadership on our day-to-day, the way we interact with colleagues, the way we take tasks. And, you know, there are always tasks that sometimes they're a bit less attractive or less interesting, or that they seem to be a heavy burden. Showing initiative and willingness to take them, volunteering. I know it's not a popular message sometimes, but those are special traits and examples where we, as the current leaders in our organizations, we always pay attention to colleagues who are ready to take on those activities, who volunteer, who we know this is a hard task. That's a very, very positive trait. The other one is you will all be exercising and you all be growing in the organizations, in your careers. The second one is there is never one right leadership approach. We are always interacting with very different individuals. Our leadership style that has been very, very successful in some environments, suddenly we arrive to a team and doesn't work. People are unhappy, they don't like what you do, or they disagree with the approach. The important thing there as well is what we're discussing. First, being able to listen. Second, being humble and say, okay, I'm doing it with my best intention, but it seems that something is not working. Could you let me know how can I do better or differently? And third, showing that you really care for the people you are working with and demonstrating that on the day-to-day. And I think those are a bit my tips a bit on leadership, discussing it like this in a short manner. Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you. Excellent once again. And probably the third large group of questions I see is a bit focused on trends and shifting landscape and looking at future trends and foresights and its relevance to careers in the UN system. And of course, foresight is becoming a critical skill in our world. What role do you think does foresight play in shaping those career trajectories? How can really individuals use foresight to stay ahead in their careers? This is a common question we get from colleagues, like how it is best to use and utilize foresight and data to stay ahead of the game and stay ahead of the curve in this competitive field.
Yeah, so if we look a bit at, I mean, for many of you, this is obvious, but if we look a bit at the job market, until very recently, the specialization tended to be very vertical. So I will be an mechanical engineer or infrastructure engineer or an expert on economics, economic development. If you ask me, I think, okay, that will stay, but the biggest opportunities and the biggest developments are coming actually on the intersection of functional areas. So for example, if you look at supply chain, if you are able to combine supply chain and technology, that's fantastic. That's an area where few people are in. Biosciences, again, if you are combining bioscience with statistics and suddenly you are also entering niches that traditionally older or more established professionals have not. For example, if you are an HR, my advice is, and you like recruitment, my advice right now is focus on AI, how to bring AI into the recruitment area, how do you assess using AI capacities and skills to assess candidates, all the assessment area, for example. So it's not anymore your pure functional area. You have to look at the intersection of fields. Same things in the area of partnerships. So, for example, partnerships very often was a very field very much partnership communications. What we are seeing now is that the boundaries between program management and partnerships are merging, are diluting the boundaries. So trying to enter those or position yourself in those areas will make you stand out of compared to other candidates. Because that's something that people who are older or that older generations, they are not able to bring to the table. And those are the areas that make the work we do much more efficient. So we are constantly looking for those skills nowadays. Let's see for how long. I think it's for a long time, but you know, in 5 years' time, we might be discussing something slightly different or completely different. But right now, that's an area where I see a great opportunity. Over.
Thank you so much, AItor. And looking at the chat, there are also some practical questions about headhunting. That is that because you were mentioning it as part of the presentation, is it something that UN agencies use nowadays as a service, or is it just a very specific example?
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic question. So basically, headhunting nowadays is very expensive. So we usually only use headhunting services and not the traditional way as the private sector does, but at least to increase the range of potential candidates for very senior posts because the cost is very high. What we are seeing right nowadays in the HR on the sourcing area is that many of the functions that in the past headhunting used to do, we are doing them through LinkedIn or similar tools at a fraction of the cost. So in that sense, there are always possibilities that your profile becomes also more attractive in terms of LinkedIn. That's very important as well. But yeah, that maybe let's leave it here because if we start, there is a whole theme also on personal visibility or marketing, where to invest, where not to invest, because you also have to strike a balance because it can absorb so much of your time that it can be also detrimental for you. It can almost be like a full profession. So it's something where we all have to find a balance. So it's also a very important topic. Maybe, yeah, that a bit from my side. And I see also, I was checking a bit, many colleagues are saying, okay, I have started doing this job. I'm relatively young. I need to develop or have more experience, because that's usually the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is you come out of university or you have done a couple of, but you feel that you are stalling, the competition is great. And in many countries, you see it a bit, many countries. I'm now based in Kenya. This is a clear example. We have a very good education system. There are a very high percentage of highly qualified candidates, but the number of professional positions is limited. So the level of competition is very high to enter and to start gaining that initial experience that will allow you. So in the first year, if you have the chance, change, not every year, but don't be too afraid if you get other opportunities to explore, to expand your skills, because in 5, 8 years' time, maybe you are in a different situation also in terms of family or in terms of responsibilities, and all that experience that you have gained will be extremely favorable for you. Okay, so now you are in a phase where you have, not all of you, but some of you have a bit that flexibility. Make use of it to be exposed to different environments and contexts, because then in a few years' time, you will be able to get a lot of credit out of it in your work, in your professional career. So yeah. So maybe that's a final message. And I understand that most of you, or almost all of you, are UNVs. That's an excellent experience. We all value it very, very much. We know that the salary and the conditions, that's something I cannot influence. That comes on the UNDP side, and it's a kind of a interagency decided. But what you are doing is absolutely excellent to build your professional curriculum or your professional profile, and most importantly, to develop your skills. It's a fantastic platform. Over.
Thank you so much, and what a great way to close this session. I was going through the comments and Charles was saying, no questions. The best webinar I have attended on career advancement. So thank you, AItor. That's a great feedback from colleagues. So maybe Mirka, any final words for the audience, or AItor as well?
Maybe I can come in. Thank you, AItor. I think this was like fourth webinar, and I think it was very prompt, because from previous webinars, and this was never tackled by presenter, you tackled the issue of change of jobs and requirements and artificial intelligence, because previous webinars were focusing like typical competency-based interview, how to apply for the position, what are UN requirements. And this was a little bit futuristic, what is actually very good for UN volunteers, because many of them, like average age of UN volunteers is 35. So I think this was really good. Thank you, AItor.
A real pleasure, and thank you, Mirka, Daniel, and to all of you.
Thank you. Colleagues.
Thank you.
And hope to see you another time. Have a lovely rest of the day. Goodbye.